The Florida Panthers, after dropping game one of this best of seven series against the Washington Capitals, come out strong in game two against the Washington Capitals, where they have a 5-1 victory to tie the series at 1, where the Florida Panthers are now headed to Washington for their Saturday matinee in Washington. On today's episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, Nick Fairbanks will be joining me to discuss this 5-1 Florida Panthers win over the Washington Capitals.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome to this Friday, May 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando from PantherParkway.com. You can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Don't forget to also follow the national show Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark. They'll be covering all the postseason activities around the National Hockey League. Florida Panther fans, do it with me. On the count of 3, exhale. 1, 2, 3. The Florida Panthers tied the series at 1. Didn't have the best showing in game one, Come out a little nervous, as what Andrew Brunette spoke about in the post-game media availability. But still, the Panthers found a way. They found a way to create turnovers. They found a way to use their speed to their advantage in game 2, doing what they do best in this one, and something that we've seen throughout the regular season that led them to 58 wins. We saw the Florida Panthers team that we were very familiar with. But let me bring in my guest to the show, Nick Fairbanks of PantherParkway.com, on this postseason Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. Nick, welcome back to the show. And I got to ask you, how are you feeling? What's the wellness check on Nick Fairbanks here?
Hey, Armando. Great to be on again for Fairbanks Friday and another Victory Friday, be it that. Pulse check. Well, Anton Lundell scored, so I'm very happy. The fan club is still going strong over here. So, no, just very relieved to see the Panthers put together what I would say is a complete game, full 60 minutes of a playoff game where, you saw them basically take some punches in the mouth and then be able to battle back and then turn the game in their favor. So very good to see that they are able to do that.
Yeah, and spoke about it yesterday about how there's an optional practice with this team. A lot of the fan base was just freaking out, including someone in our chat, which I won't say by name, of how they were feeling is like they should be back on the ice. It's like, listen, Aaron and I even spoke about it yesterday that this team doesn't need to get on the ice in order to be motivated in between games. Of course, 58 wins that led them to where they are, being the President's Trophy winner, home ice advantage all throughout the postseason. And the result that we saw tonight spoke for itself.
100%. And, there's different ways to go about how you prepare for a game. Burnett said it, the best, in the first game that they had a lot of jitters and everything. And instead of, I guess, doubling down on, that type of feeling, or I guess bringing those feelings back for the second game, maybe, the team just needed to take a day and like kind of cool off from all that and, just kind of take it easy. You had some players that decided to take a part of the optional skate, which was good to see, like Noel Achari, Marchment was a part of that as well. But then you have the other guys that, decided to take it a little bit easy and, they decided to play soccer around the parking lot and things like that. So, there's multiple ways to win. There's multiple strategies that teams can take on, and I think the coaching staff has a pretty good idea of what's best for their team and what's best for their players. And it seems like Andrew Brunette definitely has his finger on the pulse for this one. So no issues at all with taking the day off or taking it easy. Nothing to stress.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about this. Andrew Brunette, gonna repeat myself. He said that the team was a little nervous coming out. I mean, it showed. The Washington Capitals had a 3-on-1 chance early. Florida was able to break it up. Bob played the puck early as well and almost caused a turnover to the other end. But Sergei Bobrovsky, I mean, 60 of 64 in the first 2 games of the series. He's been great. And they even had a power play early on. Nicholas Backstrom hooks Jonathan Huberdeau, and they don't even get a single shot on goal throughout that power play. Barkov had a chance, but he flat out missed the net. And TJ Oshie had a shorty chance going the other way. Gudis was losing the puck a little bit early on, and it looked like that it could have possibly been a repeat of game 1. But we've also seen how first period it's a consistent theme. But of course, you rather them be slow in the first period versus the third period. Of course, that's their money. That's been their money period all season. But just continuing to just kind of pace themselves a little bit. That's kind of how I see it, that they're like kind of pacing themselves, not exerting too much of their energy. And that's kind of like how I see their slow start before getting those 2 goals and never looking back after that.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing we can take away from this is that Bobrovsky is ready, and he has been ready, and it's something that we alluded to in the roundtable that we had earlier this week. That you and I thought that Bobrovsky is ready, and I think he's proven it. He's come up big. I think he's made some saves that he probably had no business making, and he made a couple of saves on Ovechkin tonight that I think really kind of helped turn the tide of the game. But I think this Panthers team still lacks a lot of experience. So it's not uncommon to have this team have those jitters and really not come out with all that energy. I think in a way that maybe being overly energized could lead to some bad decisions or overthinking. You said that Gudis was fumbling the puck a lot, and then you had Bobrovsky that almost gave away a goal and everything. And I think once they were able to get through that first initial storm of the Capitals and everything, I think they were able to settle down. They were able to create turnovers and play the Capitals game and score 2 goals off of that. And then from there, the Capitals had to play the Panthers game because they had to open up a little bit through the neutral zone. So that was a very encouraging thing to see. And if Florida can do that and they can just weather the storm through the first 5 to 10 minutes of the first period, they're going to have the series. And it's very encouraging to see that they matured in that level, or they made the adjustments that they needed to from game 1 to game 2.
Yeah, and Aaron spoke about it, how that in between those games, they were probably watching tape from game 1 to make those adjustments too. So that's what I kind of think of it as when it comes to that. And Sergei Bobrovsky, once again, I mean, 2 of the 4 goals that he gave up in games 1 and 2, both of them were on the power play. Sure, the sharp angle shot by Nicholas Backstrom, not the best angles, one he would want back, but you're gonna get one of those Bob goals that that he gives up that you kind of raise an eyebrow a little bit, but that was the only one, and we can live with that. That's the weird thing about that, at least early on. Of course, our opinions can change throughout the later stages of the postseason, but gives up what you call a Bob goal. And the Florida Panthers, they were having a hard time protecting the puck in front of them. But man, you also got to give the Panthers. There was one shot that could have been in. Bobrovsky was on his back. I forget who was sliding over the crease, and then I believe it was Ben Sherratt who cleared it on the penalty kill. I believe it was during Mason Marchman's double minor too.
Yes,
and just the fact that they were able to clear the puck as well. That's that's a very encouraging part of what this Panthers team does in front of them. Of course, the start wasn't ideal, but as the game went along, they were able to clear the pucks when they needed to.
definitely. And the specific play you're talking about is the one that Ovechkin got the high from the slap shot off that Bobrovsky got a good chunk of and everything. He just couldn't corral it, and it got behind him. And luckily enough, he was, smart enough, or he, instinctively went down onto his back with his arms to kind of block off the goal. And, I think I forget who it was Johansson that was there,
Correct.
waiting to, clean that up. And Sherratt was right there just to, I guess, dump the puck down. So very good to see that the team was there to defend Bob. There was a couple times the Capitals tried to run him, or at least tried to, show him like, hey, we're not afraid of you, or that we're trying to get in your head. And it looks like the team definitely wanted to battle for him and actually give him, the support that he needed. Because let's face it, I wasn't on for the first game. He didn't get a lot of support in the first game.
Absolutely.
And he definitely got it tonight. And if that's what we can expect from the Panthers going forward, Bob is going to be dangerous.
Absolutely. And the superstars came to play too.
Yep.
The 10 we just went a few minutes talking about the $10 million man, but Ekblad at 16:20 he gets the first goal of the game redirected. I thought it was deflected off of Duclair at first, but replay shows that it was redirected somewhere else. But Ekblad getting a goal, and then that backhand pass from Huber to Barkov, just incredible what those two continue to do. And just continuing to kind of, even though there wasn't an injury that caused the lines to shift, Andrew Brunette was still finding ways to shift the lines a little bit. Claude Giroux was also on the third line in morning skate, but quickly that third line went back together. So maybe kind of trying to play a little of gamesmanship as well with the other coaching staff, with Peter Laviolette's staff, but kind of mixing and matching a little bit, seeing what they got. And Barkov and Huberdeau for a good majority of this game were together, and of course they convert on a goal.
Yeah, and I think the thing that from game one to game two is that Barkov and Huberdeau did not have enough time to, I guess, settle the puck or have possession time with the puck. And when they did have the puck, they were passing it really quickly. The play that Huberdeau got and created was that is the Huberdeau that Panther fans know. He made one move and he was already past the defender, and you just saw Barkov go right to the net, and you knew what was coming. But it was beautiful to watch. I don't know if I can describe it any better, but I think the fact is that was the second goal of the game. That's really what started kind of opening things up, and that's what allowed Huberdeau to have the time and the composure to make the play that he did. And from there, you had Marchment come back down on that big third goal that we'll talk about later, that was crucial as well. And from there, the Panthers kind of just kept their foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah, and even though the Florida Panthers, they Mason Marchment specifically, they got into his head a little bit in games 1 and 2. No harm, no foul with the double minor of the Panthers that the Capitals did not convert, but also the Florida Panthers got in the head of Hathaway in this one. He got a 10-minute misconduct in that one, and it was starting early with that 4-on-4 with Gouda, with Radko Gudas as well. So we're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk more about Mason Marchment and how he's been able to make up for some of the lack of composure that he's had so far in these first 2 games of this 7-game series. But first, we're going to talk to you all about Built Bar. And summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kid's backpack. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. Best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both. And it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built Bar, you could eat healthy and actually enjoy it. Have you tried the Built Puffs yet? We are crazy about the Puffs. They come in crazy flavors like banana cream pie and even churro. Who doesn't want a protein bar like a churro? And they're only 140 calories. Sign me up. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Second segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm Armando Velez. I got Nick Fairbanks here from PantherParkway.com to discuss this 5-1 victory over the Washington Capitals. Now they head to Washington, and I had an opportunity to ask Alexander Barkov after the game that the Panthers, after they could have easily taken their foot off the gas pedal with the score being 5-1 after 2, and 17-3 shot on goal differential in the third period. They got to be feeling really good, and just it kind of told me that they kind of sent a message to Washington saying, yeah, you beat us on our home ice, but despite this lead, we're gonna show you that we are coming. Anton Lundell even said after the game, he used the slogan "Time to Hunt" for the Panthers. Your boy, Anton Lundell. How are you feeling all about that third period?
So I think I put it in the chat. I think I prefaced the third period to be like, "Hey guys, I hope you guys are ready for a boring third period," and it was anything but. Just because usually teams like to lock down and kind of get out of there, just make sure nothing happens, and they play defensively sound. But that was not boring at all. I mean, they were hitting everybody they could. They were putting on shots, and I thought Samsonov played very well. And now Washington has a huge question on their hands if who they're going to play in the third game on Saturday. And I think you and I talked about this a couple of episodes, but the fact that the Florida Panthers haven't had to change goalies through 2 playoff games is very telling, and that Washington has had to. Usually when a team has to change goaltenders, it doesn't bode well for the rest of the series. So the fact that the Panthers were able to kind of keep their foot on the gas pedal, as you say, really did send a message, and it would be very interesting to see how Washington comes out. Number one, like what kind of structure they're going to play, if they're going to continue to play their trap. And secondly, who's going to be in goal?
That's a good question. And thankfully for us covering this team and being fans of this team as well, there isn't that question, because the revolving door of the 3 goalies last year was just absolute disaster, and got to stick to one. And of course, the performance of the goaltenders kind of forced Joel Quenneville's hand at the time. But great performance by the Panthers in that third period. Just a lot of confidence. I felt confident going into this game. I was thinking they're gonna win. They're gonna find a way. President's Trophy winner, 58 wins, all that stuff. I was no way in hell did I think that the Panthers were down by any stretch. I mean, anyone listening to this and anyone on the podcast can go after the first 2 games and see, and it's very consistent with that. But that second period, with Hathaway and Gudas getting into it a little bit, and then Lundell, the 4-on-3, the like I said earlier, Backstrom scores on that sharp angle, but shortly after Mason Marchment, that touch pass from Brandon Montour, oh my goodness, because look at the replay again, because for everyone listening, Brandon Montour is right near the high slot near the top of the circle. And then he sees that in his peripherals, that he sees that Mason Marchment is going to his right, and then a little touch pass, and then nobody picks up Mason Marchment, and then he just beats Vanacek for that one. And listen, Mason Marchment's at this point, yes, Mason Marchment's going to get paid, likely his last season with the Florida Panthers. But though, despite some of the frustrations of him might playing a little over the past the whistle or behind the play, which was what that roughing and slash was. Well, that happened a little later, but still, the Panthers and Mason Marchment, one, I kind of hope that the team kind of talks to him about not doing that stuff behind the play, but 2, the way this guy grinds out, the chip on his shoulder that he's had in his career to make it up from AHL, ECHL, the Solar Bears, which is 15 minutes from where I live, and making his way all the way up. This guy has such an opportunity to be a possible hero for this team, and even in this series for those grinded out goals for Mason Marchment.
I think he's this year's Sam Bennett in a way. He would score some big goals, but would be taking some errant penalties that the team didn't need to have. And one thing, this will be definitely my opinion on this, but it seemed very odd that they called two penalties on him at the same juncture. Usually they would just call the one for roughing or for slashing or whatever, but I don't know. It just seemed really weird that they decided to call the slash on him at the end of that. But I think they were just trying to keep control of the game. But that's just my opinion. I think it's playoff hockey. They should be swallowing their whistles and letting the guys play. But again, my opinion. He definitely was a difference maker. He was all over the ice. He was getting inside their heads, especially Hathaway. And then on top of that, anytime he went towards the net, he was definitely drawing attention. But going back to his goal, I think it's worth saying or worth going back to the whole replay where I think it was Sherratt that ended up hitting one of the Capital players on the boards, creating the puck to come loose, and then Anton Lundell is able to skate it all the way down. Then he makes a drop pass over to Giroux, and then Montour makes a beautiful touch pass over to Monty. So to me, that was a coast to coast, or everybody gets to touch the puck before they score, which is perfection in hockey terms. So couldn't have asked anything better. Number one, for a response from the Capitals just scoring, but also having the full complete team from one end of the ice to the other, creating an amazing play.
Yeah, and you talk about steals, you talk about going the other way as well, but also Carter Verhaeghe, as the Capitals were trying to clear the zone, he comes up with that steal right on the blue line, preventing that puck from going out, preventing the Florida Panthers from having to reset, and then Rhino to Lundell, your boy, tic-tac-toe, back and forth, just throwing Vanecek off. Vanecek had no chance on that one. Of course, there were some bad goals that Vanecek gave up, but that one, if you're a Washington Capitals fan, you can't blame Vanecek on that one. Just two guys just try fooling the goalie on that one and just finding a way to break this one open. That was at 15:24 of the second period. Your boy Anton Lundell, we talked a little bit about that we talked a little bit about it 2 days ago with Jacob, that Anton Lundell, a little bit of a slow start for game one. That third line wasn't the best, but man, what a response by this third line. And they just got back to playing the hockey that they know that they were in the regular season. And I feel like the message in the locker room, I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like the message which is in the locker room is like, listen, this is a higher intensity type of game. Your adrenaline might be going a little bit more than usual, but stick to your game and what you do best. And I'm really happy for someone like Anton Lundell. And he spoke about that after, and he was just like happy to get it going.
Yeah, I mean, the third and fourth line were no-shows last game, unfortunately. Let's call it what it is. And, if that was the message, saying, hey, listen, play your game, then it definitely showed in the second game here. The third line was fantastic. If anything, the third line was the best line all game. You had Marchment hitting everybody. You had Reinhart actually trying to dig out in the dirty areas and try to win puck battles. And then you had Lundell, who was trying to facilitate. And, you had Carter Verhaeghe that was put on the third line for that goal, or for that fourth goal, I'm sorry. And you don't really get too many of those in the playoffs. It's very interesting to see that a puck turnover like that, and then you have two forwards like below the last defenseman. And any other year, if that was during a regular season game, I would have said that there's no chance that puck's going in. But with the skill that this team has and the camaraderie that line has, it was just beautiful to see. So glad to see that the third line responded the way it did, and hopefully going forward, they will be the line that, is the one that kind of carries the Panthers over the top in this series.
You're going to need it in your top nine when needed. And no, like you said, no show in game one, but an improved performance definitely in game two. And then Carter Verhaeghe and Radko Gudas on the fifth and final goal. Gudas defensively turning the puck over early on was in a little bit of trouble, but offensively he made it up on that stretch pass to Carter Verhaeghe. and just takes it all by himself, nails a wrister past Vanacek, and just that was that was like that was when you knew that the series was going to be tied at 1. That's how you knew that they were heading into the next period. Just really, the third period was all about not getting hurt and nobody getting suspended. And I didn't see a play in this game that was suspension worthy. The closest thing we saw in this series was that possible hit of Sam Bennett on John Carlson in game 1. But this time around, the Panthers kept their composure. I mean, Hathaway had a 10-minute misconduct towards the end of the game. They were frustrating. I mean, just in the third period alone, I count 1, 2, like two penalties by the Capitals, both of them in the third period, and one of them was a 10-minute misconduct on Hathaway. So Hathaway was one of those guys that the Panthers need to look out for as far as like hard hitting forwards on the other side for Washington. I mean, there was no Tom Wilson today for the Capitals. That was a guy that was definitely missed. But the fact that, again, 17-3 as far as the shot on goal differential, they got in their heads.
Oh yeah, they definitely did, and they played their own game against them. They shut them down. Then what happens is when they were able to get a turnover, they were able to play their transition game like they had been all year. So it was a really beautiful thing to see. I know I've said beautiful probably about 5 or 6 times, but what else can you call this game and everything? It's probably one of the better playoff games I've seen from this team in a long time. But Carter Verhaeghe's goal, that's a goal scorer's goal right there. I mean, you're just throwing it on net, and unfortunately, Vanacek just whiffed on it. And I will say this. He was only responsible for maybe 2 out of the 5 goals that were let in. I think the other 3 were definitely he had no chance on. I mean, he had a Lundell goal that no chance. He had the Barkov goal that Huberdeau made an amazing play on and that he tried to stop, but he couldn't. And then the Ekblad goal was just a lucky bounce. And sometimes, teams need that to, get going. But, he himself was, responsible for 2 goals. And if you look at that in comparison to what Bobrovsky did, Bobrovsky only gave up 1, or he made a mistake on 1. And if that would have been the game, the Panthers still would have won 2-1. So, just overall, a very good, team game. And on top of that, shutting it down in the third period when you can. So hopefully the Panthers are trying to show us as fans that, hey, we can play both ways.
Yeah, and speaking of that, the Panthers head to Washington for Game 3, a matinee start on Saturday. So lots of momentum. Momentum is back on Florida's side despite dropping Game 1. But we're going to talk about how we're feeling about heading into Game 3. We're going to talk about some of the scores around the league when it comes to the postseason, and we're going to just the vibes are good around here. We're going to continue to have good vibes around here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast on this Fairbanks Friday. But first, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. And BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting stats and info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball, and this weekend's Run to the Roses as the Kentucky Derby is back. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Continuing this Fairbanks Friday edition, postseason edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm Armando. I got Nick Fairbanks here on this Fairbanks Friday on a 5-1 Florida Panthers win over the Washington Capitals to tie this series at 1. The Florida Panthers are heading to DC tomorrow, more than likely, or doubt it's an overnight flight for this team. But the Panthers tied 1-1, and I discussed this a little bit yesterday, but Tom Wilson with his injury, the fact that it was a late game tonight, a travel day, or the Capitals might be traveling overnight, don't know. They have a matinee. Don't know if the Capitals are going to get even a practice in. And after only playing 2 minutes, not even close to returning and being out tonight, I have a hard time believing that he's going to be playing a Game 3, especially it being an early start. And of course, the Florida Panthers took a lot of advantage of it. How are you feeling about that?
Number one, the fact that he only played a couple shifts or at least a minute in game one and didn't return and then didn't even play in game two, it tells me that his injury is probably a little bit more serious than the Capitals are letting on. I
Correct.
think it would be smart of them to, I guess, draw the Panthers in a little bit with the alluring, like, oh, Tom Wilson might play. But at the same time, they know that he's probably going to be out for a couple games at least. So if that is the case, then the Panthers need to take advantage. Unfortunately, they weren't able to take advantage of game one, but they definitely did in game two. And they need to take advantage in game three because if he does come back, then that makes their offense more potent. And on top of that, all these little skirmishes that you have after the whistle and everything are about to get a little bit more rough. And you don't know if he's going to be out there, possibly. And I don't want to say it like this, but headhunting. If the game gets out of control, or maybe he just wants to change the complexity of the game, and he decides to throw a big hit and kind of changes the Panthers' fortune a little bit. So definitely something that we want to keep an eye on. But like you said, I don't think he'll be dressing for game three. If Florida ends up winning game three, then I do see him coming back for game four.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and very important piece for the Washington Capitals. But Peter Laviolette is probably not going to make the injury excuse for the Washington Capitals. Just like Florida last year with Aaron Ekblad out, they didn't make that injury excuse for Aaron Ekblad neither. So scores around the National Hockey League. Let's go over that a little bit. With the Pittsburgh Penguins playing their third string goalie Louis Domingue, the Rangers find a way to even up the series with a 5-2 victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Colorado Avalanche and the Nashville Predators, surprisingly, with their third string goalie Connor Ingram, who was playing mostly his time in Milwaukee, that's tied 1-1 after two, surprisingly. So maybe another series that could definitely change a certain direction when on paper that maybe looks like a sweep that a lot of people were probably talking about. But I just sit back and think about it, because when you go so many months of just playing regular season hockey, you have an off season, we sometimes can forget how much different playoff hockey can be and how one team can just get the best of another any given night. And the fact that it's 1-1 in the just heading into the third period, and Nashville even had a chance on the road too, that you got to be feeling good. I don't know. Of course, I don't want to focus too much on box score watching because of course we're focusing on this one. But man, I'm sure with the Nashville Predators, they got to feel good about heading into that third period. Like their confidence is like, hey, let's steal one.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely playing much better, or at least they're sticking to their game plan and their structure compared to game one, because they had their doors blown off their barn, unfortunately, in game one. But it seems like that they're playing at a level that, they're trying to dictate the pace in the game. And they understand that they have a third string goalie in there, so they need to cover for him and they need to play well around him in order to have time and success. So we'll see what happens. It is at the end of the second period, and we'll see if they decide to take some chances, or if they decide to stick to their structure right now, and see if Colorado makes a mistake and they could take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. And Dallas is leading Calgary 1-0 after that game finished 1-0 in favor of Calgary. Dallas only got 16 shots on goal in game one versus former Florida Panthers prospect Jacob Markstrom. So, oh, by the way, Frank Vetrano scored for the New York Rangers today in the third period to make it 5-2. So happy for Frank. Struggled to get into the lineup this year, but found a top 6 role with the New York Rangers, and is in a better position than he was with the Florida Panthers, and happy for him. So that's another that's a positive for a former Florida Panther. So question. Who starts for Washington on Saturday?
I think they go back to Vanacek.
Okay.
The reason being is that, like I said, I think he let in 2 goals, or he was responsible for 2 of the goals, and that the team didn't play well around him, and they got out of their structure, or their, what's the word I'm looking for here? The Sorry, I'm blanking here. Yeah, basically their structure, of basically being able to tamper down the Panthers' transition play, and I think they'll go back to him. But on the other hand, you really can't say enough about how Samsonov actually played in the third period when they got blitzed 17-3 in shots and didn't let one in, and he looked pretty solid. Making all those saves. But if I was Laviolette, to keep the composure of the team and everything, I would go back to my original starting goalie.
Mm-hmm. And also, like we said, the switching of the goalies here and there, that's not something that you want to do. But I think regardless, Nick, I
Mhm.
think this is what the Panthers are doing, regardless of who's in net. They're doing this. They're and for the people who are listening on the podcast, I was just licking my fingers, like licking their chops. The Florida Panthers are licking their chops, heading into game 3, and just that's Florida Panthers hockey, the President's Trophy winning Florida Panthers, and we recognized this team tonight, and which was a team that we didn't recognize in game 1. Once again, first period jitters for the Florida Panthers showed a little bit in that first period, but then they found a way. But Nick,
Mhm.
it's tied at 1. I think the Florida Panthers got them where they want them.
I do too. I think Washington had them where they wanted them after the first game, but they didn't expect a response like this in the second game, and now the pressure's on them to go back home and hopefully win a game or two. Um, I honestly think Florida's going to win the next 2.
Oh, okay.
Washington, and the reason why I make this prediction is that Washington was not a good home team during the season. They were actually a road team. So to me, what kind of calmed me down after the first game was they're actually one of the best road teams in the NHL. Now, when they go back home, they're not. They don't play that well. Obviously, playoff hockey is a different atmosphere. They're going to have a lot of fans there. That's going to be loud and everything. But I think Florida has figured some things out on the road, and I also think that they may have found something out of the second game that they can utilize going forward. And I'm hoping that through Saturday and Monday, that coming back home, they'll have a 3-1 lead, and hopefully by Wednesday, maybe Friday, we can be talking about hopefully a second round matchup against, I don't know, maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. And that's another series. We could talk a little bit about that quickly. All the confidence from the Maple Leaf fans was right here. And then all of it, probably that pulse of that fan base right now after losing home ice advantage compared to where it was here after the drought that they've had, and Tampa Bay going. Of course, we're not rooting for the Lightning on it, but honestly, I'd rather beat the Lightning face to
Yes.
face and just kind of laugh at Toronto. Not
Yeah.
gonna lie, it's a perfect storm. Laugh at Toronto and then face off against Tampa Bay, and for the Panthers to beat them and advance to the Eastern Conference Final, hopefully. So all the hope right here, only for it to come crashing in game 2. So all probably not good vibes in Toronto.
No. And I kind of tweeted out after the first game that I felt like Toronto is setting their fans up again. I mean, yeah, they dominated the first game, and Tampa Bay didn't look like how they were supposed to, but guess what? Second game, they looked exactly how we thought they were going to look.
Mm-hmm.
So look out, buckle up. That honestly, I think after that first game, it might be only a 6-game series. Might not be 7.
Maybe, just maybe. So that we'll definitely be chatting more about that and more throughout the week. Florida Panther fans, enjoy this one, but let's move on to game 3. The Florida Panthers already have, and they're looking to take one back. Nick is predicting 2. I'm going to say 1 that they get on the road, and then they'll be right back here. Probably a series tied 2-2 for game 5 at FLA Live Arena. They're guaranteed another home game here. And that's the beauty of it. The fans have showed out. I know you weren't in the arena for either one of the games, but being in the arena, Nick, the vibes, immaculate for this Florida Panthers team.
And the guy who coined that term played immaculate tonight, and I'm very happy for that young gentleman. So definitely going to take this in for the next couple of days and then get ready for the matinee on Saturday. And hopefully, like I said, prediction will be coming out with the 2-1 lead after Saturday, and then hopefully after Monday 3-1. But let's chill. We got this, as you said. We're good.
Yep. The vibes are good here for Panther Parkway and Locked On Panthers. But Nick, thank you once again for joining this live edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Once again, tell the people where they can find you online.
Anytime, Armando, and thank you again. Fans, you guys can find me at Prudentia0 on Twitter and also at pantherparkway.com. So once again, Armando, thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening on YouTube, whether it's the podcast. And more importantly, thank you for everyone who came down to Section 101 to meet up with me, the people who follow on the Twitter and on the podcast. We're going to try to be doing these intermission meetups with fans in between games. So follow the Locked On Panthers Twitter page, and we'll be announcing for each home game, at least the ones that I attend, any of these meetups. So thank you everyone who listening out there. But thank you once again, Nick, and see you next Friday.
See you next Friday. Hopefully we'll be discussing a possible clincher for Friday. So I'm hoping.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark, who will be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure you listen to today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Host Stu Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy team. Follow Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.